firstly, just that question. I mean, how big a problem, in your view, is radical Islam within Western societies?
Well, strangely, it's getting bigger. It's getting smaller in Muslim societies, and it's getting bigger in Western societies. And part of the reason for that is Islamist groups like the Muslim Brotherhood are considered terrorist organizations in countries like Egypt and Saudi Arabia, etc. So they're aware of the threat. They understand Islamism. They understand Islamists. Whereas in the West, they do not understand it, and they are not aware of the threat. So the main problem here in the West is that there is not a clear distinction between Muslim and Islamist. People are not understanding that those are two very different groups. People are grouping them together. Now, that's understandable because every Islamist is a Muslim, but not every Muslim is an Islamist. So an Islamist essentially means a political Muslim. He's a Muslim, or she is a Muslim, who is going to use politics, use diplomatic means in order to spread Islam. So you'll have jihadis that will use terrorism to spread their religion, and you have Islamists that will use diplomatic means. And so it's very important to understand that threat. And in countries like France, for example, they're finally understanding it. Unfortunately, it took, rivers of blood before they finally started to understand it. They have such a high Muslim population there that within, once you have a Muslim population that high, you're going to have a high percentage of Islamists as well. And, it took Samuel Paty, a teacher, being beheaded in the middle of the streets of a suburb of Paris before the French government were finally, willing to put their foot down and say, okay, enough is enough. This is a real problem and we have to address it. And thankfully, they're doing some very important things like shutting down mosques that are preaching Islamist things, anti-Semitism, homophobia, things that you would, if you were in a mosque in other countries, they would be problematic there as well. So, it's important to understand that these are parts of the religion of Islam, and some Muslims believe it and some Muslims do not. But the difference is an Islamist thinks that whether you believe it or not, you have to follow Islam's rules.